Okay, so with the stock falling, some investors might be thinking things aren't going well for Tesla. Well, it's actually the opposite. Tesla's entering new business, new markets, and new products. Tesla just announced a new Megapack factory in Texas that will generate at least $10 billion in new revenue. They're also now entering India, a new massive market. Meanwhile, we'll review what's happening with the tariff war here in North America. Tesla also just launched a full self-driving in China with rave reviews and gearing up for a number of new products. So we've got the bulls here with us today. I've got Alexandra Mertz, the Queen. You got Jeff
Morning.
Lutz, also known as Mr. Incredible, the Rational Bull. We've got Xander Sky back with us again today, the Froyo Tycoon and Options Bull. And our special guest today is Cern Basher, the Bot Bull. Guys, we need to just start off the bat before we get to the new product, the new announcement of the Megapack factory in Texas. Lots of things happening with new markets, new businesses. But how are you guys feeling about the stock? Some people are panicking. Some people are afraid. What's going on? Who wants to start off?
I would just say the lower it goes, the more excited I am about the opportunity. Right? I'm focused on the long term. Again, not investment advice. And the short term, the stock goes lower. That only improves future returns.
It does. There's no doubt about it. And I want to address something that I actually addressed on Tuesday in our X space, and I think people we may not have the same public, because people are overly worried or angry or whatever you want to name it, that board members and some of the executives are selling Tesla stock. Now, if you look at who does that, these are the same people that are involved in the Delaware court cases. And in the Delaware court cases, the one argument that always comes up and where we have difficulties replying is controlling party. This may change because the Delaware legislature has introduced a new definition of controlling party. So in the future, this may be easier. We're gone anyway. I mean, that's the good news of this week is we won the Donald Ball case, which now makes it clear we are, since June 14th, 2024, a Texas company. But we still have 4 or 5 law cases pending in Delaware. And for those, the controlling party is a very central definition. And so if you have board members, and especially the chair of the board and the executives that are linked to financial results, meaning, the CFO, the people working for him, if those people want to stay clear of any influence from the share price and from Elon, if they want to prove that they are not controlled, the best way of doing so is whenever their 5-year options vest, and that is just a random date, right? This is not something somebody's looking and staring at the screen like most of you are, but this is just a random date that was determined 5 years ago. And so when that date comes up, well, they execute their options and they sell. And that's just it. There is not more to the story or not less to the story. And it's not Kimball always selling at the high. And it's not, oh my God, the chair doesn't know what she's doing. No, there's none of that. This is just a logic to be able to defend yourself and defend Tesla in those law cases. So if people are too stupid to understand that, be there, get hysterics, send me DMs, keep on going. I mean, at one point I won't reply anymore, but at the moment I'm still politely replying. But I would really appreciate if people would listen to this, not get aggravated about it. It doesn't have any influence on the stock price other than that it's happening. And that's it. Please understand that.
Thank you for educating us on this. There's so much fun on this. And are you yourself? What are you doing, Alexandra? Are you buying? Are you?
I'm buying. I bought 130 stock. So my 401k at my age is, let me check because I put it down, I think 64,000. I'm sorry. This number changes every year and I have to look it up every year. I think it was 64. So what I did is I bought for 32,000 last week. And I got 130 for those. So obviously, I hope that for my second chunk, I get even more than 130. I mean, would I have bought at 480? Thank heavens I did not, right? That's just it. I mean, to be fully transparent, the 8,000 of my Roth IRA, I bought them somewhere in the 400s. It wasn't 480, but whatever it was. So I'm usually dollar cost averaging, but since I expect the stock to not go up very quickly, I'm sitting on that second half of the 401k waiting. 230 sounds very attractive to me to jump back in, but we'll see. So that's what I'm doing. That's my little stock trading. I hold this whole thing for another 5 to 10 years anyway.
Yeah, and to be clear, right, we are all Tesla bulls. We all own Tesla stock, but this is not financial advice. Everybody has different scenarios. We're all different ages. We have different financial scenarios. So, Xander, what's your thinking? You were saying something before the show started about what you're doing.
Yeah, I just think about Warren Buffett and be greedy when everyone's fearful and fearful when everyone's greedy. With a valuation sub $1 trillion and you have Elon, like at the Madonna in the last, I'm actually wearing the jacket, the last Tesla takeover. He talked about a path to 30 trillion. And when you think about that and what that means, it's more than a 30x valuation. Is it going to happen in the next year? No, maybe 20 years, maybe less, maybe more. Who knows? But can you imagine getting a piece of revenue from megapacks, from energy generation that's on your roof and the batteries at your house? And maybe not at this scale, but some of us maybe want to get to this kind of scale. So I just think that if you just look forward and skate where the puck is going, 250 is cheap. Yeah, I know the forward PE is, if you're gonna look at that, fine. But as soon as analysts can model the revenue and they see the path, the stock is going to take off again, and that's just the missing piece. So I'm not worried at all. I just, obviously if you're dabbling with options or leaps or you're hurting, and but that's why when you're really far disconnected from the 200-day moving average, that's not the time to be going all in and YOLOing, or 200-day moving average. Think about golden crosses and that kind of thing, right? The 50-day crosses, the 200-day, right? All of those technicals are important if you're not just dollar cost averaging as you go. But again, not financial advice. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but I'm not concerned, and I really look forward to to what's coming, especially the launch today. I'm at Starbase, so very excited.
Okay. And then, so, we don't know what's going to happen this year, right? Stock can absolutely still fall. But I guess what we're going to cover today is like the new business, the new markets, the new products. If we focus, I think what Jeff likes to call it, the signal over the noise. You got this new megapack factory that was just announced yesterday. That's, we'll talk about how big that is. We're talking about India, expansion to India. We've got new vehicles that are coming. We got FSD in China, just a complete, so far, it's been a week and a bit now. No, Tuesday, it's not even a week, but all these videos are coming out and it's looking really, really good. The people that are testing it out in China are just loving it. All these are very good news, but meanwhile, stock is falling. There's tariff issues. We're going to cover all that. Jeff, do you want to just kick off with what you're thinking and what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, you have a collection of issues relating to the company and its near-term performance. And even I always say that its most recent quarter, and the strength of its most recent quarter, isn't much of a backstop. And then you've got noise in the current quarter, and then you've got macro noise now at levels that, we quite frankly probably haven't seen since the start of the Ukraine Russia war. Because just overnight you have, European leaders threatening war. You have, China responding to U.S. tariffs. You have, the German bond market, responding. You had a number of things they're all happening at the same time. And of course, and I've been pretty critical about just how tariffs have been implemented in the United States. I'm not there's no issue to me in terms of leveling the playing field with tariffs, but it's the application of it. And it's been pretty haphazard. So you have all these things happening at the same time. And then you have the company, changing over its highest volume vehicle, and you have the leader of the company not directly, acting like a classic CEO, but doing things that are quite, necessary, based on your opinion. And you put all these things together, and you're going to get volatility. You're going to get these kind of movements. It just goes back to I I can't give anybody, nor will I ever give anybody individual trading advice. What I did today or what I did yesterday, it may not be as useful just because I don't know what everybody's a different time horizon. Everybody has a different risk tolerance. And, but I think what we can do, what we can do is kind of level through what is signal and what's noise, what's FUD, what isn't, and have those more pure conversations about the fundamentals of the company and where it's going, and just understand, like, once the earnings start printing from these items, then that those earnings will basically supersede anything else that's going on.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the comments right now, and we are the bulls. We believe we are investors in Tesla. So we look at the signal versus the noise. Now, there's a lot of people going, why would you ever buy this company? Hey, that's your call, right? That's okay. We're not here trying to convince you to buy it. We're here to talk about the business, which we will do shortly. But I'm getting distracted with the comments. Somebody called me a haughty, Alexandra. Who's that haughty? Actually,
No,
I think they're talking
me. That's
about you?
That's for me. And I really appreciate those people telling me the hair looks good and all that, because, it's so tough getting older and, not dyeing your hair anymore, losing weight, having all these wrinkles. I mean, you should see looking myself in the mirror, and I'm laughing at my wrinkles on my belly, on my face and all that. And then you have these really cute comments, and I know there's some ladies here that tell the gentleman not to do it. Please, gentlemen, continue doing it. It really goes straight to my heart. Thank you. Oh,
that's funny. Well, I think what's pretty cool what you did was you put your mind to it, and you've changed your entire look and exactly what you wanted to do. So congrats on that. Okay, well, let's get started with the next thing, right? So just yesterday we got an announcement of a new business. Tesla's entering Megapack factory in Texas. This was a bit of a surprise that came yesterday, I think, because it's coming sooner than we all thought. We did hear Elon say that there is a new Megapack factory, but it turns out that it is in Texas, and they're going to build a new 1.6 million square foot Megapack factory in an existing building. So that actually should start sooner because of maybe it's already started production. If this gets going, it could be estimated $8 to $10 billion of revenue annually. This is the existing building here on Empire Boulevard. And some people are saying that this is actually bigger than what we expect, the 1.6 million square feet. And, Jordan, the limiting factor, says that this is 3 to 4 times the size of the first two Megapack factories. Lathrop is 440,000 square foot. Shanghai is 660,000 square foot. But Cern, you were saying you actually don't think that it's as big as people are saying it is.
I think it's unclear at this point. I've seen numbers for Lathrop, just under 500,000 square feet. Lathrop is a number of buildings, and that screen that you just showed there is from the Tesla 2018 10K, which was the last time they showed the square footage of their various facilities. So yes, this is pretty old information now, but those two facilities are still there. I think Tesla has actually a pretty big footprint in Lathrop. There's a lot of distribution there. So that one facility there that's 885,000 square feet, which is a combination of warehouse and manufacturing, it's not clear how much of that's manufacturing, and it's not clear if any of that is Megapack. Certainly the next one down there in yellow, just under 500,000 square feet, is labeled manufacturing, and we believe that that's the Lathrop building. But it is unclear of how much of their footprint in Lathrop is for Megapack. And then in Shanghai, it's also unclear exactly how large that facility is. Brian had 660,000 square feet. I've seen numbers of 880,000 square feet, or even up to 1 million. So we're not entirely sure how big these buildings are, how big these facilities are. But I think it's safe to say that if you're going to build a new Megapack factory, you're probably going to build it larger than the other ones. There's no reason to build smaller Megapack factories. The other thing that's really interesting about this location in Texas is it's about 120 miles from the Austin Gigafactory, which is great. That's pretty close. But perhaps more importantly, in terms of where it is next to Houston, Houston is a very large city. Houston has a number of rail lines, so it would be easy to distribute megapacks, to the eastern part of the United States from there. And also, importantly, Houston has the Houston Ship Channel, which is a 50-mile shipping channel out to the Gulf of America. So it would be very easy to put these megapacks on barges and on ships to distribute them to the eastern part of the U.S. Or even to other parts, potentially South America.
You guys find it, is there any correlation or odd that they built a megapack factory always near a Tesla factory? So there's one in California, there's one in Shanghai, there's now one in Texas. Maybe this is where
there is inbound component sharing between the product lines. So that's helpful from a warehousing perspective. But I would be surprised and somewhat disappointed if they're not going to co-locate cell assembly here. So I wouldn't necessarily take the building sizes. They're doing like-for-like operations in every facility. Hopefully they're going to evolve to the next stage, which is bringing that next link of the supply chain closer to assembly of megapacks. So what you'd love to see is they're working on their own LFP solution, and they're working on being able to scale it in multiple locations. I think Tesla's future is the 4680 dry electrode and LFP. But there's still going to be other battery types in the mix, but they've got to really make some real advancements here on cost. And both have a next leg down in cost that they really need to get to help the operation get to scale. And both of them can be smaller operations with Tesla's IP. They can be smaller operations than they were before, be more portable, and then be more co-located with the factory. So I'm not saying 4680s get ripped out of Austin. I'm saying that when they do these final assembly factories, I'm thinking they're going to want to do more vertical integration than they've done before. But let's see. And it's right. I mean, it's correct to say too that they also want to increase the output for megapacks from a capacity perspective per facility too. So
I have a theory. Yeah. My theory is that everything you said, of course, is absolutely correct and very likely it's true. But my theory is that they're also likely going to build supercomputers. So you have a supercomputer in Texas, you want megapacks there. Maybe they're going to have one near Giga Shanghai. I'm not sure about California, but that's reasons why you want to build megapack factories. One reason.
Yeah, no, Tesla, I get mixed when I do research on where's the AI computer in the car built. I get mixed responses on my research, but ideally you would want that co-located to what it's going into. So those computers go into megapacks, they go into vehicles. So bringing that operation, I know what you're saying too, which is maybe building more network infrastructure, AI data center network infrastructure. Yeah. I mean, that's possible too. I honestly think that is possible. There's no reason why what Tesla does, why they couldn't apply that same process and prowess to data center manufacturing, and they consume so much of it in their businesses. But then now we're getting back to the XAI discussion too. It could be another time.
Do you guys think that maybe by the end of this year, this could be launched and ready to go? It's the US, it's not China, so maybe not China speed, but it's an existing building. They might already have started.
Yes. Yeah.
The fact that it's an existing building saves a lot of time. The thing that's kind of blowing me away is that for a $200 million investment in equipment that go into this building, if that can produce 8 to 10 billion a year in revenue at, let's say, 25% gross margins,
yeah,
Tesla should be doing that all day long, right? A $200 million investment for 4 to 5 billion a year in gross profit is a pretty good return. And based on where they want to be in terms of, the energy business, a decade from now, they're going to have to make, if each factory is 40 gigawatt hours, they need about 50 of these things.
Yeah, and I want to point out, how important Texas becomes. We're now a Texas company. We have our headquarters in Texas. We're now expanding again in Texas. Which is, I don't know how many expansion that people were speculating it was somewhere else in the world, yet it is in Texas. I also want to draw attention to another corporate governance topic. Is Texas State just introduced a bill. So let me just pull back a second for that. I'm sure I won't be too long. But Delaware was always the place people would go for incorporation because it had the business court, this chancery court, right? But half of the US states don't have business courts. They're just with the normal courts. Everything is mixed, family law and business law and whatever. So Texas is now building up these business courts. And actually, I'm very convinced, I read an article that Elon is helping one of those judges who gets elected by the people to have enough money for his marketing campaign, right? So there is some steering going on. But now what's more important is Texas has just introduced a bill that for small shareholders in Texas, for Texas corporations, they cannot just sue. So a case like Tornetta would not be possible if this legislation passes, meaning you have to come to a certain threshold of shareholders before you can sue. And I tell you, I'm all for this. Of course, it robs the little shareholder. But when we see what happens in Delaware, where law firms are actively searching for tiny shareholders to bring cases that nobody would ever thought about other than lawyers, I think this is a very good protective measure for any corporation in Texas, but it also corresponds very well to a post that Elon did about 6-8 months ago when he said, I think there should be a threshold of, let's say, 10,000 shares before people grouping together before you can bring a case. And so that there seems to be the willingness of the state of Texas. I mean, it's no coincidence that the robotaxi rollout in June is going to be in Austin. So there seems to be a coincidence of the state of Texas and the city of Austin being very favorable to Elon and Tesla, which is obviously good for us. And on the other side, that means, well, that's where we want to invest. That's where we want to continue grow.
Yeah. I've been saying that, there's a deal that was made. So Elon made a deal with Texas, says, okay, you got to give me robotaxi here, got to loosen some. If you give us some things here, then we're going to give back. We're going to build you a mega pack factory here. It's going to be huge.
Exactly.
All that things, we are betting big on Texas. So far, guys, my bet that I said in January, it's coming true. Maybe, we'll see. I said there might be 2 mega pack factories announced before June. We got 1. I think there will be another one before June. I still stand by that because of everything Cern just said. It just makes sense for them to make another announcement. I'm still thinking it might actually be Shanghai, right? Again, got to have these.
Well, maybe Berlin, because that would mean every gigafactory has now theirs, right? But yeah. I just doubt that Elon at the moment is very favorable to investing in Europe. I mean, Europe is so anti-Elon, anti-Tesla at the moment. I'm not sure you want to pour more money in it, but you do know, obviously, we have the expansion of Giga Berlin. I didn't even talk about that, may as well bring it up, but there's, again, issues between the water provider and the Giga Berlin expansion. We thought we had that all settled, and now they suddenly found another pretext to start negotiations. But anyway, given how complicated it is in Berlin and how anti-Elon this whole thing has evolved, I doubt that it may be Berlin, but it would be logical. Shanghai has his now, Texas has his now, so Berlin could have been the right thing.
Okay. Brand new Megapack factory. That was a bit of a shock that they announced it yesterday. There seems to be ahead. This is exciting. It's going to be big business. Then also the other thing that happened that, again, just everybody's so focused on a stock falling. India, they've entered the India market. We're going to talk about the tariffs as well. So there's signs that's been happening. You've got the India, a couple of showrooms that was assigned. So it sounds like Tesla's going to start selling cars in India. And then they've just signed a 5-year lease for their first showroom. So that shows you that they're really serious. They're going to move forward with this. Cern shared this, which are the, what is this? Oh yeah, all the jobs that they're, job openings for based in Mumbai. There's quite a number of them. So this is clearly things that they're moving forward with. And then also this is kind of reports are being made that there's going to be a 0-0 tariff deal to the US. So 0 tariffs for anything the US sends to them and vice versa. They might be positioning themselves because of this tariff war. Jeff, do you want to take on this and share us what you know about what's happening here?
Well, India's been protectionist even beyond China for decades. So this would be a huge breakthrough. I will believe it when I see it. I think there is a stronger possibility of this happening now versus any other point in history, just given what's going on in China. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them moving on it pretty quickly. I think this movement you're seeing by Tesla too is also there are also company specific deals and carve outs that the government can do. I've set up manufacturing and distribution in India before, and this would really be historic, but it's kind of the right time given what's going on with China to do this. It's just the market dynamics are different in terms of, we're setting up a showroom. It's at least, month one, year one, it's not going to be the kind of sales picture that you would have in China. But that, these classes, they evolve over time. And of course, Tesla is introducing lower cost vehicles. But yeah, it's a good sign. On the tariff side, there's a lot of bets being made in both ways, and there's a lot of confusion right now with corporations. A lot of my conversations are about this and where can we move from and to. And there's right now there's only one safe place, which is the U.S. The problem is the economics get distorted based on the product you're building and your method of manufacturing too. So it's a complex thing. When I see posts, people like, why can't someone just throw a plant in the U.S.? It's even from China, it's far more complex. In fact, even if you start double clicking into the China auto OEMs, there's some that are capable of doing this. Xiaomi, for example, I would think that they're more than capable of doing this, but it's going to take them time. It's not, build a factory at China's speed. First off, I don't think in this climate it would even potentially even be allowed. But we may get past that. But even if you think about, you can't just build the end final assembly factory. You're gonna have to get all of your sourcing localized as well, and then the economics get really distorted really quickly when you start thinking about these $13,000 to $20,000 China vehicles because of where they're sourced from today and where they're built today, and how under automated their production techniques are at some of these manufacturers. Anyway, it's a longer story, but it's not one size fits all. This tariff climate and what's happening right now, it's a long story. It could be its own show. What you see in the media and what you see happening, I think there's fault on both sides of this conversation. The media portraying that the United States is being a bully when there's decades of reciprocal and much higher tariffs being put on the country, and there's a story behind each one. But when it comes down to it, right now you're seeing the near term optics at the same time of the U.S. putting them on and looking like a bully, but they're tariffing into much bigger tariffs in some respects and much bigger trade imbalances. It's more complicated than that. But I would just say finally, you can be critical too about how the U.S. is going about this. The Canada-Mexico 25% blanket tariffs across the board was so ill-advised, especially you just look at the auto industry. For example, the auto industry designed their supply chains to the USMCA trade agreement, which had these allowable differences and labor rates set and where these operations could happen. I'm surprised that the USMCA was structured the way it was, to be honest with you, because it's literally a gigantic vacuum to pull high content labor jobs out of the US and put them in Mexico for zero tariff. But that's actually what happened. And now we're waking up and saying, well, we can't do this much longer. But if you put those tariffs on and you leave them on, those factories in Mexico are feeding the US factories. If you turn the business case of a product upside down and make it not profitable, they have no choice but to stop building the product, because the more they build that product, the more they would accelerate their losses at the tariff schedule. The other problem you have, and this doesn't have to turn into a tariff show, but just the starts and stops that have been happening are causing inventory buildups. We had a record trade deficit in January, for example, and you're seeing this pre-build of inventory occurring. So some of the predictions may be off here or there, but I predicted within a couple of weeks that if these tariffs stayed on in the auto industry, you would start seeing mass layoffs, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in the U.S. auto industry. And that's why there was the panic call to the White House. And then, those tariffs were pulled off for now. There's really no plan, even a month from now. Just don't get it twisted. All they can do between now and a month are move low complexity parts and build up some inventory. The most high complexity parts would take them much longer to move, be much more involved, and the economics wouldn't work in the US. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but there does need to be some leveling. The question is how they're applied. So anyway, Tesla is caught up in this a bit, but I would tell you from the way they've structured their supply chains, they've probably more insulated themselves than any Mag 7 company that builds hardware on the planet. They're probably more insulated than any of them because of their strict drive for localization. They're in the best, even in the United States, they're in the best spot. Yes, and the other thing people get confused of, they get confused when they see what percent content is U.S. versus that's percent of part numbers. What you have to look at is the percent of the bill of material cost, which actually drives the value of the tariff that's being paid. And if you look at that, it's probably much higher than 70%. We don't see this number, by the way. It's not a NHTSA number because Tesla has the higher complexity, higher dollar parts built, co-located to their factories in the US. They're much, much more insulated. And then the lower complexity parts that are outsourced, there are parts in Canada, there are parts in Mexico that Tesla sources for manufacturing in the US, but those are typically lower value, lower dollar parts and lower complexity parts where if they had a gun to their head and this is going to be an extended thing for multiple years, they could move them. So Tesla's in a pretty good spot, but they're not insulated. It's not zero, but if some car companies are going to see $5,000 to $10,000 of difference, for example, in terms of impact, Tesla would be on a much smaller number than that, and with a path to improve it further. So more to come. I also think Tesla's well insulated in China, 96% local sourced in China, and now they have this leverage now with India. It's going to help a bit. It's just the start. So tenuous times, but you just have to understand signal versus noise and what's happening and how the company's positioned right now. If these go back on, if there's some sort of blow up and they go back on, Tesla can survive through this.
And not only survive, they'll succeed.
Thrive.
Love your knowledge on this is just amazing and the best in the community. Appreciate you sharing that. When you reference here is that Ford, GM, and Stellantis actually had that panic call, and they called Trump and said, please give us an exemption, and gave him a 1 month tariff, a 1 month tariff exemption. So they're going to postpone it for a month. They're in trouble. If this does continue, there'll need to be a carve out for sure. Back to India, Jeff, I was going to ask you, so they've done so far is they're going to start selling cars, Tesla cars, into India. But they had this like 100% tariff. And so they must have reduced it something. And maybe there's this 0 to 0 thing. We're going to let you sell cars in Tesla in our India. But India used to always say too, that we won't let you do that unless you build a factory here. Do you think that they're going to build a Giga India now? Or is that just, we'll let you have cars and that's it? That's the only deal that they made?
It's complicated. What I would say in short is if India presents the environment that allows EVs to be successful and thrive and allows Tesla to be successful and thrive, then if I'm Tesla, then I take a serious look at doing that. And they do, you're right, they do typically connect a tariff holiday with you starting to bring your production in to follow. So that's a fair read. But if I'm Tesla, I want to see that the government is doing everything possible to make these products can stand on their own, but you certainly don't want them working against you, and you want them because they have subsidies all over the place. They probably subsidize a bunch of different things. So you'd want you'd want somebody to kind of sift through that climate and make sure that they're presenting you a real sales channel where you can be successful and thrive, and you can help them, and then they can help you. So I think I'll be staged. There'll be more to come.
And I mean, do you agree that India could be the big winner of this whole triangle trade situation between?
Yeah. And this is going on in my day job too, and not revealing anything about that, but just if you look at the move, Apple's made a gigantic move into India. There's other companies betting on it. What happened over the last 5 years is there were bets coming out of China into Vietnam. By the way, China is feeling this. They still have the base of production. They still have a lot of the base of the sourcing for production of these high value items. But if you look at what we import in the US, you look at iPhones, for example, you look at some of these there's a couple of product lines that are a big dollar value in terms of what we actually import. And India could position themselves to be a very big winner in this. So India would source out of Tesla Berlin for these vehicles, and that's a very common trading lane as well between Western Europe and India. So yeah, they could definitely be a big winner in this. But you know what? It's not. They haven't figured it out yet. So we don't have a deal, and I've seen before where we kind of do this dance and then we kind of pull back. So India's really got to, I guess, all right, we're doing this. We're going all in. It's certainly that their government and our government are signaling that they're working closer together. Tesla's signaling that they're working more closely together. So there's certainly signs.
Okay. So we got a new business, Megapack factory in Texas. You got this new market, India, which could lead to a new gigafactory in India. But the more exciting things we should talk about is the new vehicles that are coming, FSD in China. They just expanded FSD in Mexico and Puerto Rico, now got approval in China. That's such a big deal, but of course that did not move the stock one bit. And also now it's a week later, and everybody's just extremely excited about how good China FSD is working in China. They're now telling us how it compares, both positive and negative, to Huawei and other Chinese systems out there. But in general, the Chinese drivers, even the ones who are so critical of Tesla's FSD, have turned around, and they're now saying this is better than they expected, as we've all known because we've been using it here in the U.S. So, you know what I mean? This is such a big deal, the FSD in China's. And maybe we can talk about that a little bit, and then we can get into the new vehicles. And there's now rumors that it might actually be approved in Australia as well. So it's moving fast.
Yeah, Tesla got themselves to a level of performance and a level of sentiment. And we don't talk a lot about measuring sentiment. I guarantee you that Tesla is measuring. They're looking at sentiment, but they're also obviously looking at the real data. They're looking at the real disconnect or the intervention data, and it is improving. This is where you're going to get high volatility with some of these local. I'm not trashing local trackers that are online or whatever. I'm not, but you're going to get high volatility with low sample size information. You're going to get false positives. You're going to get false negatives. And you're going to get high volatility. Tesla has the high volume and the high frequency data. It's behind the firewall right now. I think when it gets to a point and a level of performance, when it meets certain standards, I think they will start revealing that, and they certainly need to do that with regulators. But yeah, I think what you got to with 1328 is a level of performance and a level of sentiment. If your sentiment is measuring the positive, negative attributes of everything discussed about your product. And there's ways and there's software that goes out on the internet and scrapes this information and comes back and quantifies it. And it just appears that sentiment has improved dramatically as it relates to FSD. And like I said, Tesla have the real data.
Look at this one. This is an incredible video. This is what they're dealing with. And the cars and the way Tesla FSD works in China is much more aggressive than it is in the US, because of course it needs to be. Look at all these scooters and pedestrians and cars. And if it just sits there, it'll sit there. That's the complaint. Many testers are saying it's too cautious. But look at this example here. It knows I'm going to go despite all this that's happening in front of me. And it's figuring it out. And I think it's going to improve over time. But look at this. This is crazy. If it can do this here, I mean, it's impressive. Very impressive.
It is.
Yeah, I think this is probably something that the market is missing in a major way. I think if all things were normal, this was a normal quarter, normal times. The fact that Tesla is now operating FSD in China, which basically has doubled the market for FSD available vehicles overnight, this is a major deal. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're comparing it. So listen to this one. We have put on the music.
I consider this an intervention. Some people argue that pressing the accelerator doesn't count as an intervention and that this is human-machine co-driving.
Anyways, it was obviously it was translated English overplay here, and this person is just explaining how this is different from Huawei, what it does better than Huawei, what it does better than others, and they're just blown away. Honestly, it's like pretty good. So, yeah, these videos are coming out, and again, only we are watching it. Apparently, no, it's gone viral. Billions and billions of people have been watching it. So.
Can we read this for a second? Because I was reading the comments and I think this one is a good one. I think we should honor actually all Tesla employees. And it must not be easy to be a Tesla employee these days because they hear it as much as we hear it. So there's so many people in Tesla that are crucial, but this person is right. Also the ones that crunch the numbers and do all the research. And so it's not only the engineers, it's not only the manufacturing side, it's also these people. And I just want to call them out. I just want to tell them all we think of them as shareholders. We're proud of them and keep on going.
Thank you. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's interesting, Herbert. Many years ago, Elon made the comment that he thought it would take 6 billion FSD miles in order to get worldwide regulatory approval. As of the end of December, they're almost halfway there. Now, it's not going to take very long to get to 6 billion. Based on my calculations, we're there by the end of September. Probably
if you add
the latest.
If you add China now, right? Yeah.
Even without that, even just I'm just looking at US, Canada, maybe Mexico, but just North America, we can get to 6 billion just on the strength of that, not including China. Now, that doesn't mean that FSD is safer than a human at that point. This is something different. You're just measuring the amount of FSD miles. And this is something that Elon talked about, I think, all the way back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. So
that's the thing, isn't it? With Elon, it seems that every time he thinks about the future, 5-10 years out, and he makes these kinds of statements, he's dead on accurate. Dead on accurate. No one, he says things that it's going to happen in 2 weeks. It's going to happen this year. That's when you got to go, okay, don't know, right? Jeff, you have a very good explanation why that happens, right? It's like things you know and things you don't know.
Well, what I would just say is I think there is some confusion. Some of it's purposeful. Some of it isn't about robotaxi in June and Tesla's milestones this year with unsupervised. And what people are, they're talking about the two things in the same sentence, and it's actually incorrect. The one sentence, what people say is that Elon makes predictions and they don't come true relating to
JC?
FSD. Yeah.
Sorry,
and that's one part of the conversation of, he makes these predictions every year. And when Elon was making those, he's kind of making those predictions, for 9 months later, many months later in the year. And by the end of this year, we should have this. This is a very specific prediction about driverless robotaxi for money in June. They basically have a release in hand that they think is capable minus a few tweaks. This is the final kind of, really the final innings of that. And not saying they're not going to continue to improve it for years on out, but the point is they're really into the kind of the short strokes of the golf game at this point. This is not teeing off. This is not something far out in the future. They have specific knowledge now, and that's why they can give you it's almost a date. Right now it's a month. It went from a year to a half a year to now it's a specific month. And the reason they're able to do that is they have information that they haven't had before. So I wanted to separate the two. And I've also said the following: June may be plus or minus a few months. That could happen when you're doing something that has never been done before. But the point is we're not years out now. we're probably not even 6-month increments out at this point. We're within a couple of months of making this major milestone.
Okay. Got 2 questions for the panel to find out where you guys are all sitting. Okay. And we can have discussions about these. So the first one is, there's 3 things that can happen with the new vehicles, right? It could be the Cybercab is going to be turned into a drivable version, and that's one of the low-cost vehicles. It could be a stripped-down version of the Model 3, Model Y, and it could be a brand new Model Y variant, new vehicles. Where do you guys all sit here? Who thinks it's, let's say, the first 1, 2, or 3, right? Which one do you guys think it is? So why don't we go down? Alexandra, which one do you think is going to be more likely?
I have no idea. And honestly,
No
it doesn't
guess.
matter. It doesn't matter to me, in what order it comes or no.
Yeah. And then Xander, do you have a theory on that?
I totally spaced out when you were asking, so
Okay.
let's go to Jeff
Cern?
and I'll catch up.
I hope
Jeff?
it's all new vehicles. I'm discouraged by that because I think we would have seen something by now, and thus, obviously there's ways that they could hide it, whether it's in, a garage in Giga Texas or wherever. But at some point, you're going to start seeing some new shapes out there. We haven't seen anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the most
Yeah.
likely candidate is probably the Cybercab.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen one or more with the steering wheel. Now that could just be for testing purposes. There's no, we don't know for sure whether they're actually making one with a steering wheel. So I don't know, but I'm a little bit discouraged by the fact we haven't seen anything else yet. So I think it needs to be, stripped down Model 3, Model Y, or Cybercab. But I'm hoping for new vehicles.
Yeah, I am 80% confident it's number 3, and they're going to take the Model Y design language and they're going to expand it, and then they're going to shrink it, and those to me could possibly be the new vehicles. And it fits in with all the logic that's been in the earnings statements. It fits in with all of the verbal statements the companies is making, and it fits in with supply chain product logic of wanting to drive scale. So number 1, the company said that they're using these new modules from the future vehicle, and they're bringing them forward for this vehicle. That's going to help take the cost structure down significantly for things that people don't actually even see or experience. If the motor is $1,000 versus it being $1,700, you're not, and as long as Tesla gets the kind of performance it's needed, you're not going to see or feel that. But that's the kind of stuff that they're working on. So think of these things that you don't see being put into these vehicles. Then the next thing they told you is they're building on the Model 3 and the Model Y lines. Those lines are structured, they're serial, so they're not Cybercab lines. The Cybercab is going to be built in a different way, where the pieces are coming together in a parallel fashion, where they're pre-processed already and they come together in a final assembly fashion, versus it coming down in a serial fashion and then being post-painted at the end. So the actual process of using the 3Y lines would lead you to believe it's going to be something closer to the 3Y. The third reason is it's not just a stripped out, the whole thing of like a stripped out, 3 or Y. They do that all the time. You saw the Mexico version of the 3. You saw rear-wheel drive versions. You see things that are only on software upgrades and so forth. They do that all the time. This wouldn't be a 1 year out announcement. Finally, when you use the 3Y CapEx, you have a hidden cost reduction that you bring into the fray that consumers don't worry or care about, but it's free to Tesla, and it brings the COGS down of utilizing these fixed assets that have already been thoroughly or mostly depreciated, depending on when they were purchased. So that's a free COGS reduction you don't get. So sorry for the long explanation, but based on what they've described in their earnings report and based on just the logic of how you get the cost out, I think it's a longer and a shorter, Y variant.
Jeff, is it possible that we see a ramp in a new vehicle like we've never seen before in terms of speed of, getting to 5,000 or however many per week?
Not sure. So the other reason I would be disappointed actually if it was the Cybercab with the steering wheel, and I'll tell you why. I think they need this entire year to figure out this painting, injection molding process and to get it dialed in. I don't know. I don't have any inside information, but it's what they announced is a very difficult thing to do at scale. But I think once they figure it out, it's the final piece to unbox. It's the final piece to the CyberCab cost structure. But to answer your question, I think once they fully ramp CyberCab and then they start, kind of cutting and pasting in other factories, I think those ramps could possibly be faster as a result. The total process time is going to be faster because a lot of the operations that were done in a serial manner before are going to be done in a parallel manner. So yeah, it's going to kind of usher in a new cost structure when they do that. But not in Texas. You're not going to get a record. I don't think you're going to get this record. The first CyberCab ramp up, I don't think it's going to be at just some amazing speed. Now, they have de-risked it. They said they're pulling these modules forward into these lower cost vehicles. So they've significantly de-risked the CyberCab launch by pulling these modules forward. But I do think the unboxed approach and then building these PU insert metal molded housing, I think there's going to be some difficulty in getting that ramped up. But when it's ready and it's working, it's going to be great.
And you think they're starting now, or you think they've started months ago?
Starting which operation? Sorry.
The molding, this whole new process. You think this is just starting now?
No, I mean, they've probably been prototyping it over the last year. I would imagine, and just at various stages of complexity and speed and volume. And my guess is now at this point in the year, they've got a production setup, and now they're assembling like that first production setup, and they're going to use that you're going to see more and more CyberCabs coming out of the factory for this prototyping process leading to start of production later this year. But I mean, I believe it. I mean, it's one thing to do is you should believe Tesla when they say mass production next year, which means this year is about production development and production and working through those issues. I think we should believe that. I don't think they're going to spring a CyberCab and hundreds of thousands of them this summer. I don't. You should believe what they say.
Do you think the CyberCabs we saw on October 10th already had this feature?
Not sure. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe part of it. So they may. So here's it's complicated. They could have been undecorated, and they could have been wrapped. For all we know, it could have been that structure in terms of the metal insert molding into the plastic. But they may have not gotten the decoration scheme down, and it would have looked blotchy and looked weird. So they just wrapped them. I don't know. I don't have inside information, but definitely in pieces they may have had it. I think those cars were hand built.
Yeah. So there was Brian Wang was saying this, and his theory is that just a few days ago, Tesla announced, right, that there's these incredible deals for the lower end of the Model 3. And he's saying there's a reason why they did that. The reason they did that is because they're trying to reduce their inventory in the next 4 weeks because these new vehicles are coming sooner than we think. Anything about?
And what would the new vehicle have to do with the Model 3?
It's I guess if there is cannibalization, because it is supposed to be the lower, more affordable vehicles, this lower end of the Model 3 kind of butts into that. So just trying to make sure that we don't have inventory stuck on hand. I
mean, inventory has never been an issue for Tesla, right? I would be surprised that inventory. I think they're very good actually at measuring inventory and keeping it low by producing less or by giving certain incentives. And the current incentives we're seeing is the 1.99% APR for the Cybertruck. So obviously they give
the Model 3 is like 0%.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize.
It's a very significant savings. Yeah.
Okay. So you're right.
No, Tesla is on a kind of a different level as it relates to inventory management. Alexander's right, and they'll do some things that are fairly aggressive to manage that tightly. That move to get to 12 days of inventory at the end of Q4 produced another $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion of free cash for the quarter, and it helped kind of be the prelude into ramping up the new Model Y. This is just, there's just so much confusion about this. People just think it's literally binary. Nobody's saying they took the Model Y down to zero. There will be pockets of inventory all over the world. That's like people are like, why did UK sell, why were they 20% high? There are pockets of old Model Y inventory, and those will sell through. There's great deals for those. But in large, there was a gigantic transition of 67% of Tesla's production. 2 out of every 3 Teslas are Model Ys, and they had to take those lines physically down and convert them for the new product. And if you read, I should have sent this to you, Herbert, but the transcript or cutout, I posted it on X. The CFO in his leading commentary said, this is unprecedented, this change. Nobody's ever kind of done this transition on the highest volume selling vehicle anywhere. And he didn't use the word a few weeks transition. He said several. So a few weeks you could say is around 2. Several, is going to be higher than 2. And just to remind people, it's not calculus. It's closer to algebra and basic math. If it's 4 weeks, if it's 5 weeks, companies take that number and they multiply it by peak capacity, and they peel that peak capacity off. And that's what could be the number in terms of lost production. So I think the Y was at 28 or 29K a week in terms of production in Q3 and Q4 of last year. So just keep that in mind, but know this is physics. This is you're doing a transition. It could be done better. I've talked about this a lot. It can be done more concurrently, but then you take on more cash, you take on more risk when you're doing that. So every company does this different.
Okay, so we are expecting a reduced sales, especially because of the Model Y transition for Q1. Are you guys expecting lower volume for the entire year?
Yeah.
The end of the 2025? I mean,
we'll have problems. Yeah, I think
we have new vehicles coming. Yeah. Still with that new vehicles to slow that. Mm-hmm.
And Herbert, we said that straight away after the earnings call. 2025, in terms of number of cars sold, we'll be lucky if we get to the 1.8 million, and that's okay. It's no problem. And I mean, if you don't see the bigger picture, if you still think Tesla is a car maker that just makes normal cars, you shouldn't be in this stock, because that's not what it's about.
I'm kind of mixed on that one. I agree with you. In general, the higher order bid is what you said is totally correct. But Elon guided at the end of Q3 for 20 to 30% growth. So the question is where are we at relative to zero and that? And I think one thing people should realize is that there is some of this demand is going to be perishable in Q1. It is like people needed to buy a car in February, and if they need to buy a car and there wasn't anything in inventory because they took their inventory down to below stockout levels based on where they're located, and there wasn't a new car available from Tesla, then they may have bought something else. And that is called perishable. And there will be some of that. So they're not just going to make this up in 100%. So I agree with Alexandra on that. The question is there's going to be distortions now in terms of what Tesla hasn't sold vehicles that are 5 or 7K lower than the vehicles they're selling right now. Everybody thought that the $7,500 credit was gone, but maybe it's returning in some other form, but it's still not gone. You can still use it today. So there's going to be puts and takes. This is going to be a very difficult year to predict. I think a very difficult year, but this start in Q1, it depends where they come in. I mean, it honestly depends where they come in Q1. It'll set the course for the remainder of the year, but there's going to be this isn't like last year. Last year, there wasn't, besides the Cybertruck, I guess they did the Model 3 transition too, but in terms of brand new vehicles, there wasn't the kind of introductions that we have this year at lower price points. The lower price points should create significant elasticity in demand. So we'll see. It's complicated. Man, if you listen to the Tesla earnings call, you have the CFO saying several weeks down. You have Elon saying that we have a supply constraint on batteries. This is a tough conversation for this year. It's not straightforward and up and to the right. So I think we got to hear from Tesla that they've solved these fundamental things. But they have reiterated that these other new product introductions are on time.
I have a quick question. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think that there will be a paradigm shift in June once there's we can look at the numbers? Am I off base thinking that will shift the focus away from cars and now we focus into autonomy?
No, not in June. I mean, I don't know when Wall Street will get it because, that's as much as me trying to throw a dart. But I think they will get it once software as a service has higher revenues than car revenues or energy revenues. And so we're far to go for that. We'll be very late. They don't give us anything in advance. And I love it when people say, "Oh, but all this was already priced in." You got to be kidding! Nothing of this was priced in. There's nothing priced in.
The other factor too, I would just add to tag on to what Jeff said, is there's significant upside or downside as it relates to interest rates and financing rates for autos. If we get some relief on that this year and auto financing rates go down, as mortgage rates have started to go down, that could be significant tailwind for Tesla in the back half of the year. So they may finish the year with, more demand than they can produce, which would be a welcome change.
Yeah. Xander, I don't think so. I think that dip-toe means that it's going to be just small pilots, introduction. I don't think that's going to move anybody until the following year. That's when, you can really start rolling it out to big cities if everything's moving along nicely.
Yeah. Jeff, there was a question which I liked in the comments, which was, what is your experience working with manufacturing in India?
It's difficult, but it's manageable. You just have to understand the rules. You have to negotiate, and but it all depends who has the upper hand in the conversation. Years ago, they had the upper hand in some of the industries I've worked in, but I think in this situation, you have China running away with automobile exports. And I think from an economics perspective, just given the value of these products per unit sold, I think this is something India wants to figure out, and they want to work with the technology leader, and they want to get closer to the United States on trade. So I think Tesla's coming into this in a much better position, but it's not going to be easy. The other thing that's different now is you have some other big OEMs and other industries that have really started building out capability there, which is helpful. So what India hopes is that Tesla, being this global leader in EV production, comes in, and then they help build out the supply chain inside of India, and then from there, other automakers can come in, and they have a fighting chance to hit the economics and to make their product successful. So it's a multi-year thing, and I think India is going to be very forthcoming and very very helpful, I think, to Tesla, but it's not easy. But if I tell you this, if end state is there's some sort of zero tariff relationship between India and US, I mean look out, it could be a very good relationship, and it could be a huge burden off shift for all the concern between China, Taiwan, and Vietnam.
All right. Last comments, anybody? 2025. I think the biggest thing that has happened this year has already happened. FSD in China. I think
sure, and nobody realizes,
right? Because it's like we were so worried the month before. I was thinking that, okay, is there some sort of negotiation here? Is China holding back? Is there not going to hold in until the government interactions have occurred? They gave the regulation for FSD to be tested in China. Step one. That means the relationship with China is strong and still very, very good and forward looking. Then their second thing is FSD working well in China? So far, so good. That's the next big thing, because if it can work really well in China, this just proves, right? Just another data point showing that full self-driving is actually everything that we're all saying it is. If it can work in the US, it can work in China that fast. And then, like, of course, they still need to train it more. But that just shows you this is a magical product that's on its way. So these are proof points that matter.
The other
I
thing,
agree,
Herbert,
Herbert. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah.
the other thing I would just add is as we get into the second half of this year, Wall Street is going to start thinking about 2026. But 2025 will matter less and less. And Elon described on the last earnings call that 2026 is going to be epic, right? And so I think once Wall Street starts to focus on what those numbers look like, then you could see a pretty big sentiment change in the stock.
And much easier for them when we're at 260 than when we're at 480.
Yes.
I just wanted to show this again, Herbert, because I think that's actually a good idea. And this gentleman, I think it's a man, because given all his brilliant comments today, I don't think a woman would be so aggressive. I think you should bring the FUD farm on. I mean, this guy's hiding behind a name. He has a lot of really nasty comments. I want to, take him on. I think I would like, so please, FUD farm, come on. We're very happy to have you on. And then we'll discuss rather than you spewing your hate where you are in the comments.
Yeah. It's risky, right? Because these guys, they attack, they say things. Sure. When you just drill in just one little question, they break apart like sucking. Like exactly. There was this one guy that posted, says, oh, the Optimus bot. I can name you 10 bots that is better in many ways. And so, okay, we'll name them, please. And then guy goes, like Boston Scientific for one. I'm like, exactly. It's Boston Dynamics.
Yeah.
It's not Boston Scientific. Boston Scientific does not make robots. They are a pharmaceutical biotech company. And it's like, it's like just one question under. They really don't know. And so then they don't become good people to discuss really good discussions with. So it's
keyboard warriors.
Speaking of bots, what I was going to add was I was going to substantiate the paradigm shift. I think that it's really important to understand that once Tesla is taking liability and you have a robotaxi and you have robot brains and now you have your time, right? Can you imagine taking a boring tunnel, whether you take the high road with like overpasses in China? I see all of that, where you got to pay crazy tolls, or subterranean, and you have your time and you trust this vehicle to get you from point A to point B safely. Like my parents were on a flight. I couldn't think about anything except I hope they make it safely. Everything is good. And so I think like once you realize that robot brains unlocks this tremendous value and how work will be disrupted, it's just, if you just project forward, how can you not be optimistic and excited about what's coming for humanity? So I just continue to focus at that like 30,000 foot level, and all of this, the it's going to be up, down, it's going to be difficult, tariffs, all of this, the stock is going to suffer. So that's where, just focus forward. I just tend to focus forward, but all the haters, it's too much drama for me. I focus on the robots.
Yeah.
I'll just say quickly that I agree that I don't think we've had the best point in time yet for Tesla this year. Actually, I would actually put FSD in China is in the top 3, but probably 3rd. I think the robotaxi unsupervised moment is going to be another thing, and then thousands of bots working in the factory. I do believe Wall Street will front run this information. They always do, but it feels like they're late, but they will get ahead of this, just like we saw them getting a little bit ahead of even the election and some other things. So we'll see. I think the second half of the year, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out, but they do typically tend to front run some of this information. So we'll see. But yeah,
shall we invite him?
Should be exciting.
Go ahead. Go ahead and send me, DM me. Do you know how to do that? I can send you the link on how to join us right now. Can you do it right now? Send me a DM I'm on X, right? Straightforward. Yep. Okay. Yeah. It's this is kind of I'm still blown away that this is the moment when it's getting separated, right? The people who are bulls and investors in Tesla see something completely different from the people who thinking that the company is failing, its volume of cars is down, stock has fallen. That's what they point to. The stock has fallen. Okay, you use stock to tell you whether or not a business is going to succeed or not.
I would like to give a recommendation to people. And again, it's not up to me to tell you how you should do it, but is it really worth looking at a stock price every day? You know, so many people get so nervous and anxious and motivated by that. I mean, there are people who do this for a living. I'm sure Cern is going to love looking at it all the time and has the right attitude to it. But if this drives you crazy, but you want to hold Tesla, do you really need to look at it every day and drive you crazy about it? Can't you just, go for a walk and enjoy things of life and just look at it? The biggest stock gains were made by people who never looked at them, who just 10, 15 years afterwards were looking at them and they were living fine. So I honestly don't think we should be so wrapped up in daily movements of a stock if you have done your homework and understand this company and see its potential. If you haven't done that, well, then you're a gambler, and then you may do this with different types of, and then obviously, the behavior of your CEO or whatever else will really drive you crazy.
And one more thing, I just heard that there's some Cybertrucks and some Teslas all around the country, in Louisiana specifically, getting vandalized. This is the most American truck or car made by Americans. Why? Why these accusations? You're ruining people's hard-earned things. For what? These accusations of Nazi and all. Like, we're all united. Like people really need to stop it. Everyone just wants the same thing. Everyone wants to raise their kids in this beautiful country and just like just peace. Everything will work out. Let's just be optimistic and pragmatic and realize that everything is gonna be okay. And just please stop hurting people that are just as American as everyone else, or not American but love this country. Why hurt one another? Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but it really hurts. It really hurts to see this stuff from your fellow citizens.
Well said, Xander. All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate this. We do this every Thursday, 9 a.m. Please join us again next time. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.